All right, welcome back to Morning Live. And as I told you earlier, there's something happening in Parliament tomorrow. And the bill, of course, that is the two-thirds gender bill, might go through or might not go through, because history has it that male parliamentarians like blocking this idea. And of course, in studio, I'm joined by Mr. Samson himself from FIDA. He'll be telling us more about what is happening. And of course, he himself from FIDA knows what is really happening in the background. Why are women given that challenge? Why are women not given that chance to represent their people? Karibu sana Bwana Samson.
Thank you very much.
All right. Just straight to the thick of things. Why are male parliamentarians afraid?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions. People want to think that women are going to take control, and people think that men are not going to be in charge. And so the male parliamentarians are coming up to a situation where they don't want their female counterparts to be equally represented. There's a lot of misconceptions around the entire thing, if you ask me. There are challenges around the numbers. We have had debates around it's going to be bloated. We've had debates around a huge wage bill.
Yeah.
We've had debates around who is going to be nominated to those positions. There are some questions around it. But if you ask me, I think we need to comply to the Constitution. Because the Constitution of Kenya, Article 27, talks about equality for everybody.
Okay.
Equality in all sectors, equality in representation, equality in politics, equality in participation. And so when we cannot come up to ensure that both genders are equally represented, then that now presents a challenge for us.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you talk about our society, of course,
Yes.
we live in a society where during our grandfathers and grandmothers, a woman's place was basically in the kitchen.
Yes.
But times have changed.
Yes.
And right now, the women are just maybe the girl child, the women empowerment, took a center stage. And right now we're seeing women leaders in all sectors in this country, and of course even around the world. Now, back here in the country, it seems like the ukoloni mamboleo still is kind of revolving around parliament.
Yes.
This bill has been on and off,
Yes.
not passed,
Yes.
yet to be passed. It's yet to be passed again, back again. Now, tomorrow is another day that maybe the parliamentarians have the chance to push this, hoping for the best. Now, what will entail, the recipe that will entail for this bill actually to go through tomorrow?
We have done a lot of work. Kenyans have come a long way to a situation where we're talking about two-thirds today. Our society, if you look at the Kenyan culture, the Kenyan society is largely patriarchal in nature. Men have a lot of voice,
Okay.
and men culturally have been seen to be leaders. But that doesn't say that men provide the best leadership.
Yeah, sure.
If you look at constituencies, if you look at even county governments, if you look at even some government cabinet positions where women are in charge, they have demonstrated ability to lead, they have demonstrated capacity.
Okay.
This bill has come to parliament severally. The last time, on November 20th, there was lack of quorum. There were MPs in parliament. But when it came to the time of tabling the bill for vote, surprisingly, there was lack of quorum. Everybody walked out.
Yeah, that was to
People were in the restaurant.
just around the parliament.
Yes. And the restaurant, in the washrooms, strategically moving away from voting for the bill. We would want this bill to pass, and we call upon parliament
Okay.
to comply to the constitution. We call upon parliament to look at a situation where we obey the law.
Okay.
We can't have the law-making arm, the legislative arm of this nation disobeying the law,
Okay.
breaking the law as it were. Tomorrow is a do or die, because tomorrow could be the last chance where we're having this bill brought to parliament the way it is. And my call and the call of FIDA Kenya and partners, the CSOs who work in this space, is to ask members of parliament to be sober.
Okay.
Is to ask members of parliament to think about this nation, to think about tomorrow. The circumstances where people are talking about lack of representation, where people are talking about women themselves being their worst enemies, where people are saying that we will only have, the debate that has been there around slay queens and all that, coming to the national debate being brought sometimes on the floor of parliament, being said by national leaders, I think that debate is unwarranted, if you ask me.
All right.
I would call upon them to stand up to be counted tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
So when it fails tomorrow, it will be the fourth time.
Yes.
It will be failing.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it was among those to be passed during the first 5 years of the enactment of the new constitution.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Do we have a situation where maybe the fight will still go on, even if it fails? We use the word God forbid. When it fails now. When it fails, so do we have a situation whereby the continuation to push this agenda will continue by the women parliamentarians?
I honestly don't want to go to that God forbid part because I'm trusting.
Yeah.
I have faith in Parliament that they will pass the bill tomorrow. I have faith in Parliament that they have the welfare of this nation at heart.
Okay.
But if circumstances push us to that point, the fight is still on.
Okay.
We have to reach a point where, honestly, we can talk about our wives, we can talk about our mothers, we can talk about our daughters being comfortable. This country needs to look at 20 years, 30 years from today.
Okay.
Most of us are focusing on the short term. Parliament and the MPs who are against this bill are focusing perhaps only on their seats. They are focusing on retention of power. But don't you imagine there may be a day when women outnumber men in Parliament?
In fact,
why do people think this bill is for women?
In fact, the president the other day said he looks forward to having Madam President in this country.
Yes.
Yeah. And where I was seated, the reaction like, you get what I mean?
Yes.
That reaction itself was like, the men out here are very insecure about women in leadership. So when the president said, I look forward to having maybe soon a woman president in Kenya, the reaction was like, aye, Allah. So you see, these are people not even in parliament.
Yes.
These are just locals I'm
Yes,
seated with.
yes.
And already you can tell the reaction has been emulated, it's kind of mirroring what the parliamentarians are doing.
Yes.
Now, this gender bill will actually, two-third gender bill will actually be passed to the third reading.
Yes.
Now you see, that's also a process.
Yes.
Do you think there's still a long way to go? Because now that quorum needs to pass it, not as a law, the third reading, which means, of course, their assent and everything will be closer home.
Yes.
Do you think now there's still a long journey?
I think we've come far as a nation.
Okay.
And I hear your sentiments around public feelings and public perception around the 2,000 gender issue. I know for a fact that the 2,000 gender issue has been misrepresented.
Okay.
And I understand you. You are probably right when you talk about that kind of reaction coming from the public. And what is reflected out there in the public is the same thing that's probably reflected in Parliament. But Kenya has also come a long way. And there are those of us today, for example, me seated here, who look at this bill and who look at women's issues and look at men's issues as equal.
Okay.
And I am trusting in Parliament tomorrow, when the bill comes to the floor of the House, that Parliament will do the right thing.
Okay.
That we will pass this bill tomorrow, and that we will take it to the next step, and that when it comes to the point of presidential assent, then the bill will get assented to.
All right.
I am not looking at a situation where this bill will flop. I know it could. I know it could.
Okay.
But I'm trusting in the magnanimity of members of Parliament to be able to come up tomorrow and to be able to stand up to be counted tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
Should the MPs fail to pass the bill, the House could find itself in a hot spot, tight spot, as anyone can petition the High Court to have it dissolved by the President on the advice of the Chief Justice. Is that a scare to the parliamentarians also?
We actually went to court about this bill, and we said that this was one of the bills that was supposed to be passed in 5 years. So we were seeking an advisory opinion from the court to speak to Parliament and to pronounce itself on Parliament, pronounce itself on the Speaker, pronounce itself on the President, that Parliament as it is today is unconstitutional. It is improperly constituted.
there's a new ball game here. It fails to pass. That means the parliament is in danger of being dissolved.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Now, that is a real issue, and we will obviously go back to court. We will use all avenues. We will also engage parliament like we are doing today, having meetings, engaging them, speaking with them, and building caucuses so that we get support for this two-thirds gender issue. But chances, as it were, like you mentioned, that it doesn't pass, then of course there are legal recourses. There's legal recourse that we would get back to.
But you see, the judiciary knows the bigger picture. When the parliament is dissolved, that means a fresh start. Now, you know, a taxman is already burdened. Not even taxman, taxpayers are already burdened. And it's a situation whereby you're looking at so many things happening in this country. You're looking at referendum coming soon. You're looking at census coming soon. You're looking at so many things coming soon that the taxpayer will actually have to cater for all that. Now, judiciary also, in the bigger picture and maybe in the backstory, behind the curtain, they know they have to save this country from actually doing the spiral, catastrophic fall to its knees, because now, even as far as our taxation is concerned, we still have debts left at center. So maybe, what do you think about the courts? You'll go to court, but again, the bigger picture here, just as I mentioned. What do you think?
Are we bold enough to bite the bullet? I know that this country has so many things going on right now. We've got large expenses that we expect this year.
Absolutely.
We've got the national census that's coming up. They talk about the referendum, which looks like it's gathering steam. We are still not very sure about where it will go. I know the Building Bridges initiative has been going around the country collecting views about what Kenyans exactly want. And when you mention that referendum, one of the things that is proposed in that referendum is to abolish the seats of women representatives. And people say those seats do not add any value to the Kenyan taxpayer. They do not add any value to the Kenyan public. So already that is even a threat in itself. But we have got to obey the law as it is. We went to a constitution barely 10 years ago. We passed this wonderful constitution that we have today. We called it one of the most progressive constitutions we've had since 1963. And then we want to now come up and amend it with a view to abolishing representation. There could be issues about over-representation, and we have thought about these things. I have personally thought about it, that maybe as Kenyans, if you compare ourselves to our peers, if you compare ourselves to the global powers that we look up to, the US, China, and so on and so forth, then perhaps it could be overrepresented. But how do you want to go about tackling it? And so when this matter comes up the judiciary, it comes up before Chief Justice David Maraga. It comes up before the bench in the Supreme Court. I, as Samson, speaking on behalf of FIDA, would expect the judiciary to be strong enough. There has to be a time when you've got to stand up and talk to this nation and say that things have to be done the right way. If we talk about taxpayers' money, it will be a cost, all right. Disbanding parliament will be a cost, because that means going back to a fresh election. And that is a huge cost to organize and run a successful election for all the seats, the National Assembly seats, the Senate seats, the seats in the county assemblies. That is an expensive cost. But who got us here? Where have we brought ourselves to? How did we find ourselves in this situation? That's why the easiest way would be for Parliament to really stand up tomorrow. And be counted.
You have some books here, of course, Gender Responsive Budgeting, a case study of Samburu, Baringo, Homa Bay, Kilifi counties, and Kasarani sub-county. Now, this was published in 2015. Now, that's some years back. Of course, now, from its content itself, Haki za Akina Mama, FIDA Kenya. Now, When you say gender responsive budgeting, you know, are you confident? Still, when it comes to gender responsive budgeting, there must be some sense of equality, because the response in the budget has to accommodate equality. Still, before the money is released,
Yes.
there must be equality. So, Samburu, Baringo, Homa Bay, Kilifi counties, and Kasarani sub-county, those were maybe your sample areas
Yes.
where you did what you
Yes.
did.
Yes.
Now, from the expenditure, from what actually you saw around, do you think now from this content, from this book, is a clear indication that good days are coming?
Good days are indeed coming. And if you look at the way our county budgets, or even the national budgets have been made,
Okay.
there has been progress towards allocating funds for both genders. I want to speak a bit on the side of women because women are more affected by circumstances and by economic circumstances, by political circumstances.
Okay.
They are more affected,
All right.
as it were. And so I think this country is steadily making progress.
Okay.
I think we are talking about UHC today, which we have launched. There has been a whole debate around UHC.
Okay.
There has been a whole debate around why we selected 4 pilot counties, what happens to the rest.
Sure.
I know women are also affected by issues around agriculture. We just saw on the news the other day, the Invest in Galana Kulalu pulling out.
Okay.
And so issues around our food security and where that leaves our women. When there's hunger, it is the woman who gets more affected. The women and the children, they're the ones who get more affected by that.
All right.
We are talking about the 2/3 gender issue
Yeah,
and
as
the
well
political
up, yeah.
representation today. I anticipate that Parliament will consider those issues tomorrow
Okay.
and know that 2/3 is not just about women, but it's about ensuring equity for all.
Okay.
The issue of land, that has been there. The National Land Policy is coming up for review this year, 10 years after the National Land Policy
Okay.
was enacted. We are talking about 1 to 1.2%.
Yeah, yes, because of time.
Yes,
Yeah,
that one. Okay.
absolutely. I think we'll have to call you here again next time because now, because of time, I'm a bit stretched here.
Okay.
But let's hope tomorrow Parliament will actually do something magical and pass this bill.
I want to just say one thing,
Okay.
even as we talk about time. I want to call upon, which camera can I use?
You can use camera too.
This one.
Yes.
So I want to call upon members of Parliament tomorrow. This nation is watching you. This nation has its trust on you. You can do this. Please pass a law that will ensure that generations in this country are going to stand up and be counted. Please pass the law that will ensure that our mothers, our daughters, our wives, our children, and future generations will thank you for, will thank this country for.
All right.
I call upon you to stand up and be counted tomorrow. And I know that Speaker Justin Muturi and Aden Duale will mobilize members of Parliament to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Bwana Samson Orao, for
Asante.
coming to the studio today. And
Asante sana.
see you soon again because there's so
See
many
you
things
soon.
we need to talk about.
Thank you.
Also, gender disparity and, of course, the fact that the gender violence is something that has been
Yes.
in the headlines soon.
Yes.
So, see you soon.
Asante.
You're now taking a short break. When you come back, we continue a different conversation right here on Morning Live.